So my name is Ganesh Kohli, and I'm co-presenting this session with two wonderful colleagues, one from Nepal and one from Bangladesh, from Education USA. So we have a perspective coming out of Nepal, Bangladesh, and India, along with the perspectives that you get with the three countries. We'll also I'll also share some data on how high schools perceive recruitment by university admissions officers. We will also look at how the counselors are looking at you and how they think about, or what they think about universities coming to them, and we'll look at some numbers as well. There's some research data here on the key constituents who make the decision, the student, parent, and the counselor, and what are the factors that are most important. I do want to highlight that this session is not focused on any particular country. While we have Education USA representatives here, they are well aware that we will be an international audience from multiple countries, and a lot of my work also here, although the research, etc., is kind of covering all different geographies, and it's about recruitment and institutional fit that we would talk about. So I would like to invite first up Selina from Education USA in Nepal. Welcome.
Well, thanks very much to Ganesh, and good morning to all of you. My name is Selena Malla. I'm the Education USA advisor from Kathmandu, Nepal. I have the privilege to be running one of the most busy advising centers in all of South and Central Asia region. Last summer was crazy. We would have around 600 to 700 students running in on a daily basis at our center. This summer is a little less crazy. We have around 300 students coming into our center on a daily basis. So we are a really popular and very busy advising center, and I think that's testament to the level of interest among young Nepali students to study abroad, not just to the United States, but to many other countries. Nepali students are currently going to Australia, to Japan, and of course to the United States, among the top 10 destinations for Nepali students. So I'm here today to present some trends, some information relating to Nepali students. I'd like to start with this wonderful statistic that, according to Open Doors 2016, published by the Institute of International Education in New York, the number of Nepali students in the United States increased by 18.4%. And that is a huge increase, especially for a country of our size with around 26 million students, to have something close to 9,600 Nepali students currently in the United States. It's a massive number. So you can see the chart over 20 years. I've put from 1996 to 2016 over here. Started off really slow. You can't see the numbers quite there, but 1,400 students in the United States in 1996-97 academic year. And we saw a peak around 2008, 2009, a little bit of a decline, and then back up this past year to 9,662. So we are the 17th leading country of origin of international students in the United States, and all over the world there are Nepali students. So again, for a country our size, it is something to remark on. Our percentage of undergraduate versus graduate students in the past year, couple of years, the division between undergrad and grad has leveled out. When I first started this job about 14 years ago, we had a real difference in terms of many more undergraduate advisees than graduate level. So at our center, it would be something like 70% undergrad versus 30% grad. But nowadays, we really are seeing an evening of the percentages. Some trends relating to Nepali students, and these trends are are applicable to worldwide universities, not just the United States. So we see high interest in studying abroad in general. If you remember, about 2 years ago in 2015 spring, Nepal experienced two really bad earthquakes. And everything shook up, not just physically, but I think also mentally for people in Nepal. And one would imagine that after these massive earthquakes, priorities would be different. Perhaps families would be focusing more on reorganizing their assets. Close to 9,000 people perished in the earthquakes, and so many houses and structures were destroyed. So we kind of at our center expected maybe there's going to be a lull in interest in studying abroad, but actually quite the reverse occurred. So following the earthquakes, we saw a massive surge in interest in education abroad, especially to the United States. There's certainly a focus on the STEM fields among Nepali students. And I also would like to point out the concept of gap year. No matter how much outreach we do to high schools around in Kathmandu and other Nepali cities, students in Nepal tend to take a gap year after graduation from high school. It's just perhaps a cultural thing to want to have your transcript, your mark sheets from one level of education in your hand before one decides to think ahead for further education. So most of the Nepali students that you will see as well will have that gap year. And in the gap year, they of course prepare for their applications, they prepare for their standardized tests, and many of them are involved in internships and meaningful activities in the gap year as well. Does anyone know what load shedding is? Perhaps some of us from this region do know what load shedding is. Any guesses? Power outages, scheduled power outages, how fun. So ever since I was in middle school many years ago, we had these load shedding. We had this load shedding, and essentially what he said, scheduled power cuts. And every year load shedding would increase. So when I started in middle school, it would be like 2 hours, then it would be 3 hours, 4 hours, and so on. And up until a couple of years ago, it had gotten to about 18 hours a day of power cuts all over Nepal. So out of 24 hours in the day, 18 hours, one would not have electricity. Now, Nepali people are very well known around the world for being incredibly adaptable and flexible, and I think that is to our advantage for the most part. So if there's no electricity, well, we use our inverters or we use our batteries and so on. So we are adaptable people. The good news is that load shedding has actually decreased. So we don't have much load shedding these days for the past 1 year or so. And that's a good thing because nowadays Nepali students have much better internet access. They're online more and it's just easier to access. So I wanted to point that out as a new trend. Nepali students tend to go where other Nepali students go. So we joke at our center for HEI representatives who would like to recruit Nepali students that all you really need is to recruit one Nepali student and the rest will come, because that's how our culture is. One person has a good experience, they tell their friends, they tell their relatives, and the following year perhaps there will be 3 more people, the following year maybe 5 or 10 or 15 and so on. That's how things work in Nepal, and I think it is to everyone's advantage. Some recruiting strategies. Nothing works in Nepal as well as face-to-face contact. Again, I think it's a cultural thing where people in Nepal, students in Nepal, we like to meet face-to-face. Emails are great, sure, Skype conversations are fine, but there really is nothing that beats an in-person visit. So we encourage institutional representatives to make a visit to Kathmandu, to make a visit to Nepal. For US institutions, I'm on hand to help with anything that you might need. So just drop me a line 3-4 weeks in advance. I will hook you up with hotels, I'll hook you up with local drivers, and anything else you need, I'm there to assist you. So please don't hesitate to visit. We're actually only a 1.5-hour flight from Delhi, and there are daily flights available. There are lots of nice hotels to stay at, and you'll have a comfortable visit as well as meet with many, many interested Nepali students. I've noted here building up the brand. Perhaps it takes several visits, several in-person visits to really build up your brand in Nepal. Again, perhaps that's a cultural thing where students need to meet somebody over and over again, get the information maybe a couple of times. We find it very annoying at our center among our advisors where students ask one advisor a question, 2 minutes later we see them in the hall asking a colleague, the other advisor, the same question. Maybe later that day, they still don't believe it, so they pick up the phone and talk to someone else and ask the same question. Again, it's just a cultural thing. We don't get too annoyed after a while. For US institutions, we offer the Education USA South Asia Tour, which is offered twice a year, comes through Nepal, comes through Pakistan, as well as Sri Lanka. And it's a wonderful way to meet with thousands of interested students from South Asia across the region. We offer university fairs. We also coordinate school visits. It's possible to also have a presence without physically being in Nepal. So one way to do that is to organize webinars. And I think, at least among Nepali students, they are getting slowly accustomed to the idea of participating in webinars. Just the other day, we had, I think it was day before yesterday, the University of Texas at Tyler contacted us in advance to arrange a webinar specifically targeted for Nepali students. So we publicized this webinar over our Facebook page, and they did get a lot of participation from our country. There's also, as you see this image of this smiling young man, a way for you to use alums at our center. So if you can't come in person, perhaps you can send an alum. We have a talk program series called Get Inspired, where students come in, share their positive or whatever experiences they have with studying in the US with a nice audience. For US reps, there's something called the Education USA Social Media Digest. So if you have news or if you have an announcement or a scholarship to promote, this announcement will go out to hundreds of advising centers, thousands of students all over the world through the Social Media Digest. The way that you access this is through the educationusa.state.gov website. Also for US reps, there is something called the Education USA Regional Forum coming up February 2018. You can contact our regional coordinator who's sitting there in the orange. Her name is Ms. Ishra Jahan for more information. This is another really, I think that this initiative was something unusual and something I'd like to bring to your attention. A lot of times I feel with international students, they're viewing marketing material, they're viewing websites, they're viewing virtual tours published by the institutions. And after a while, quite honestly, everything starts to look the same. It's the same kinds of images, you know, with the students studying under the trees, somewhere by a lake or in the classrooms. And it's difficult for students to really feel the personality of various places as well as various institutions. So again, I mean, I'm using this example from the University of Texas at Tyler. Here's a Nepali student who's there right now. They armed her with, I think, just a selfie cam, just a mobile phone with a selfie stick, and told her to go and stand somewhere on the campus, or maybe this is the place that is located. And she just talks about how she's doing and what she's doing, and she kind of gives us a sense of the environment. I think it's a great idea to really promote this kind of real life image of the institution. Here is a typical case study of a Nepali student. This student, his name is Praful, and he started using our center in 2015. He's really into computer science, that's his passion. You generally see pretty high TOEFL scores among Nepali students because we've been learning in English since we were small children. So his score, for example, is a 97. He's got, I wouldn't say typical SAT scores. These are pretty high scores for a Nepali student, 1480. His grades are pretty typical. So SLC is the class 10 examination, 81 is a distinction. And his classes 11 and 12, the aggregate is 76%, which is pretty typical. He's gotten a pretty much full scholarship at the University of Rochester, and he's joined this fall with $68,000 in per year financial aid. Financial aid is important for Nepali students. You would be surprised by the number of students who can afford a US education, but for many of them, certainly scholarship is very important. I'd like to briefly talk about this wonderful program that we offer at our center, and it's called the Opportunity Funds Program. It's an initiative of the U.S. Department of State's Education and Cultural Affairs Bureau, and it essentially gives an extra boost to students who are coming from non-elite, disadvantaged backgrounds. These are students who would not otherwise have dreamt of a U.S. higher education. They don't even have the upfront costs of application to even dream of applying. So through this program, which our center has administered since 2011, we're currently in our 7th batch of the Opportunity Funds program. Through this program, students are provided the upfront costs of application. TOEFL costs, I think, $180 right now, right? Every additional TOEFL score that one sends to each institution is $17. The SAT is over $100. Again, the score reports, the application fee costs. All of these upfront costs of application. Getting a US student visa in Nepal is currently more than $560, including the service fee. So with these funds, with these small funds, as well as through specialized guidance from our center, we currently, from the first 6 programs, have 67 Nepali students, opportunity students, currently studying, or have just 2 batches have graduated at this point, at US colleges and universities. It's a wonderful program. It gives students a much needed opportunity. Collectively, as you see in the red there, more than students have earned more than, or amassed more than $3 million in per year financial aid from US institutions, translating to more than $12 million of financial aid when taken over their 4 years. This past fall, students have gone to many institutions. 14 out of our 18 students were placed in US institutions. Please be cautious about when recruiting in Nepal. Private agents, it's an unregulated industry. Many provide misguiding information. Many are double dipping, right? So charging the institution's fees as well as charging students' fees. So we definitely don't recommend that students use the private agents. We also warn against bulk I-20 or bulk admissions issuance, because that can raise red flags. Sometimes institutions are so eager to recruit in Nepal that they'll issue hundreds of I-20s or hundreds of admissions, and that really it doesn't serve anyone any good. Too low admissions requirements also might result in students transferring out, so I do warn against that as well. These are our statistics for usage, center usage in 2016, so 84,000 in-person visits at our center, and you can read the other statistics. We currently have 87,000 Facebook fans, so if you have any content that you would like us to share on our Facebook page, we would be more than happy to do that. These are some of the lines that we saw at our center last summer. So this is me, that's my email address, and you can stop by later and pick up my card. Again, my name is Selena. Pleased to meet you all. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, so recently we're seeing more and more shift towards Germany and Canada, whereas UK and United States were always very, very popular among the Bangladeshi students. Okay, so as of 2017, the number of Bangladeshi students in America is actually about 8,000. Which means it's a 95 25% increase since 2011. So as you can see, Bangladesh is actually one of the highest within the region sending students to United States for study. And when we see that further, we see that the greatest increase we're seeing is among the undergraduate students itself. And even in my center, we see more and more undergrads coming in all the time. So why should you be thinking about Bangladesh? Well, I'll give you several reasons. One thing is that our GDP is actually 6%, which increased the demand of skilled workers, in return increasing the demand for the service, for the education. For that, the government passed an act in 1992 to create the private universities. And since then, education sector has been such a booming field that from the year 2000, 65% of the private universities actually opened. So as you can see, the entire country, they're valuing education and they're putting a lot of effort in it. Now, sometimes, people might think that, okay, Bangladesh is a developing country. Would they actually be able to afford the education abroad? But that's not the entire story. We see that our wealth is not, distributed equally. So there is a percentage of the population who think it's prestigious to study abroad. And then there's the other percentages, a percentage of people where there's the middle income families, but maybe the students are highly skilled and highly meritorious. They see it as a career investment, and they're actually willing to sell their land for their education, or maybe even relatives pitching in to help with the studies. So this boom in education sector, it's going to last for a long time. We're predicting that at least because 50% of our population is actually below the age of 30-year-old. And our population is pretty high, 158.5 million. So let's talk about the recruiting strategies a little bit. As Selena already mentioned, it's very important for even the students of our culture to see you personally. So I would like to ask, how many of you have been to Kolkata already? Can you raise your hands? Okay, quite a few. How about Bangladesh? Oh wow, I'm so glad to see a few hands too. I wasn't really sure what I would get from that answer. Now, the next time you visit Kolkata, I would really encourage you to stop by in Bangladesh because the flight is only 45 minutes away. And we actually share the same language. Many of our culture is also the same. So it's a good facility. The other thing is about security. Now, I feel that the Bangladeshi government, they are very much giving importance to security. All the hotels, majority of our schools, malls, even both the EducationUSA centers, we check the IDs, we check the purses, we have metal detectors when people are coming in. So, a lot of investment is being done in the sector, and we're slowly seeing more and more expatriates within the country. In fact, there is a fair going on right now from Indian universities, Malaysian universities, and UK. On the other hand, does anybody watch cricket? You raise your hand? Yeah? So maybe you know that there's a Australia versus Bangladesh cricket match going on. So if there are Australian cricketers in my country, it can't be that bad, right? We also help university representatives to connect them with different schools and universities, so definitely contact us before coming. And you will often probably find applicants from both the Bangla medium students and the English medium students. And I would like to encourage that, don't think that the international curriculum students, they are more fit for America. Really don't think like that, because a lot of our national curriculum students, they're very highly skilled. As you can see over here, Buet is an engineering public university. Dhaka University is also a public university. They study in English, but it's a public institution, and their acceptance rate is very, very low. Most of these students do apply abroad for studies, and I can assure you that they're very, very bright. So what are the student challenges? I wish this was the situation. Unfortunately, it's not. So I'll talk about some of the challenges and how you can help. From what I see mostly within my center, and also like I studied abroad, so some of the things which I myself faced. EducationUSA scholarships. So any type of scholarship is very important for the students, but an EducationUSA scholarship, that's a win-win situation where we would recommend a highly qualified student for the institution. So the institution in return receives a student that they can depend on. And also because it's an EducationUSA scholarship, when we mention the scholarship to the students, automatically your university name becomes promoted. Now, being a US Embassy representative, we cannot particularly promote anyone. I cannot say, okay, choose this or choose that. But when you're giving a scholarship, it automatically comes with the name of the scholarship. The other thing is sometimes I see some universities having third-party credential evaluators. So this discourages the student to apply to that university because one, it's expensive, and two, it does take up more time. So my suggestion would be, if possible, if you can do credential evaluation within your own university, and if it is an expense which is really hard for the university to bear, and maybe charge a minimal amount from the student for that service. So in Bangladesh, the research opportunities are really increasing from the high school level. A lot of renewable energy research is happening. Right now, there was a NASA Global Challenge, a robotics challenge also, which students are participating in. So if they see that your university is offering research opportunities from the undergraduate department itself, they will become very excited to apply to the university. Now, asking for the bank statement. Like I said, a lot of the students are middle-income families, but they want to go abroad to study. So if they already have an acceptance letter in hand, they would feel more confident in selling their land or asking their relatives to pitch in. I mean, I wouldn't want to, tell everybody to help me with money if I wasn't sure whether I would even be accepted or not, right? So the final thing is that a lot of universities, I see that they do offer assistantships. So if you help the student understand how many assistantships are being given out every year, that really encourages them to apply to the university. So this is a case study of a student that I'm really proud of. His name is Rahman. He's only 19 years old. Now he comes from a middle-income family, so both his aunt and his father is sponsoring his education. He received a presidential scholarship from Selena College because of his leadership activities as well as his educational background. Now, I was really proud of him because when I first met him, he had 3 students that he was teaching for free from the disadvantaged background. And within the span of 2 years that I worked with him, he ended up teaching 18 students. It became really popular. So he's somebody who's making an impact to the society and who is a leader. So wouldn't you want somebody like him on your campus? I would. Now, he chose Selena College for several reasons. It's not only for the scholarship. One of them was that he knew somebody in that state whom he could live with and reduce the living expenses. The counselor who he was talking with at the university, she always replied to his emails, so she was accessible. And she introduced him to other Bangladeshi students, which encouraged him. Additionally, he was looking for a smaller classroom size so that there would be more teacher-student interaction, which he found over here. And finally, most of the professors in this university, since he's going in the accounting department, he was looking for professors who'd be CPA certified, which it was. So as you can see, he chose a university looking for the best fit for him, which we helped him through the process also, and he was very intelligent to go through it, instead of just looking at a scholarship. All right, so my presentation is done. And that is my email address if you have any further questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Right done. Thank you. So, can I have, by show of hands, non-US institutions here, non-US institutions. We love you. Thank you for being here. And this session is for you as well. And we'll make it valuable for try to get some information. We were very, very honored to be partnering with EducationUSA. We were so happy. We were so happy to have the advisors here. And we thought that even though it would be through EducationUSA's lens, you will get to look at Nepal and Bangladesh, which we have done. So I thank Selena and Suzanne for the insights, and they're extremely valuable. We're actually cousins and brothers and sisters here between India and Bangladesh and Nepal. But let me briefly talk about India and what makes it special. So, obviously, it's not a country that you just go to. You can see all those statistics. It's a huge young population. Only 57% of high school graduates from India can actually go to university in India. So 43%, even if they want to go to university, cannot. That's a statistic. So there's a severe shortage of institutions overall, also a severe shortage of faculty. We don't have as many people taking on the profession, and we do have challenges. You've got lots of unfilled positions in lots of Indian universities. So that's a big shortfall there. The economy is growing, the middle class is growing, affluence is increasing, and there's nothing more important than education. Give up on, I think Selena shared that they sell their land or their house to get good education. So that's it's a cultural thing. Going to a place to study is like going to worship in India. Schools and universities can be fairly formal places at times, lots of discipline and a lot of rigidity sometimes. It's also coming out of this profoundness that is associated with education. So that's something that's so relevant. And then, of course, not just English speakers, but the quality of the language also. The quality of English spoken across many parts of India is extremely high, actually. You will find that whichever country you are from, you will get a large population of Indian students that be willing and be capable, able, language-wise, academically. So it makes sense to look at India. This is how it looks, outward mobility. You can see all the countries. Obviously, the US is big, but there's a lot of other interests. It's constantly evolving, though. And this is a slightly old slide, but it's evolving. And I couldn't really mine most current data on this to share with you. But I would say largely the trends have continued. The US, UK have been, popular, most popular. Australia, Canada, and a whole bunch of other countries have been very sought after. In fact, there's been a surge with Brexit and with the political situation in the US. There's been a surge with Canada. There's been a surge with some other countries. So there's a lot of opportunity right now because of the political situation in the world for institutions from many parts of the world to be engaging with India. This is possibly the best time, because I think in my history of 20 years of advising and teaching, the US is possibly at its weakest point. it's more defensive recruitment rather than, the strengths are getting overshadowed a little bit. And I think the UK also has had a lot of questions that students have had about the UK with Brexit and what would happen, but for the most part, whether it's the US, UK, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, whatever country, you will find that you have academically qualified, high quality students that do not have access to high quality education always here, or sometimes simply do not have access to education that are looking at at education outside India. So the historic preferences have been for the sciences, and business is an extremely popular area, but that's changing quite dramatically. Actually, the number of young people choosing non-STEM fields in India is, I don't have a statistic to share, but anecdotally, through all my travels, I can tell you that the shift is huge. I mean, I've met several people who want to study philosophy and literature and, just completely focused on humanities and communication, and they would just want to get a degree in a language. And that did not happen 10 years back or 12 years back. So there's significant movement on that. There's also, schools are getting overwhelmed with information as well, especially the beaten path, the known schools. When I was a college counselor in Bangalore, I got 500 plus visit requests because, of course, I knew a lot of universities already because of my work over the years. But I've spoken to many counselors and they've told me that they get close to 300 requests, 200 requests, 400 requests for visits. I mean, they said we could shut down school and just host universities all year. And odd months now, I mean, when nobody would travel, they're suddenly starting to travel now. They get emails on an examination day, please, I'm in the city, can I just come and see you? I mean, almost desperate that no visit was set up, so let me come and just at least see you. And he said, but, we're having an exam. And I've spoken to counselors and said, Ganesh, it's really a lot of people writing. And it's so hard to say no. And some of us on the other side who are requesting visits might perceive the counselor to be mean and, they don't reply to my emails. But sometimes they're just purely embarrassed to say no. I mean, how many... And sometimes I have to say no to the same person 4 times. And I think it's important that we figure out, we realize as universities that there's an information overload to the students, to the counselors. There's lots of emailing that's happening. There's lots of lists that are being bought. There's lots of message information that's coming through. There's also the social media preference that's changing. The way people engage on social media, and we have a session later this morning that you might want to go to. Our region, Bangladesh, Nepal, India, is still a very touch and feel. We're a very emotional lot. You've already seen that in this conference. Somebody talked about the vibrancy. It's invigorating. It's immersive, and it's really about the fact that we're a very touch and feel country. You can't recruit Indians by sitting in another part of the world. If you really want to recruit Indians, or Bangladeshis or Nepali students or other students in the region, you want to be engaging, and you need to recruit 7 people, not 1. Because you have to recruit the grandparents and the parents and the siblings and a whole bunch of other people. So it's important. You'll see we have a statistic with my organization, with UnivAssist. We found, we did some research and we found that there was an open rate of 31% to emails that you send out to students if you had on-ground presence of some form, and there was engagement on the ground. And when there is quality engagement, schools begin to compete for your presence. When I founded with Swaraj UnivAssist, we had 3 US institutions engaging with us. Today we have 160 odd that have engaged. And the schools appreciate a lot of these people coming, even if they are coming multiple times, because they know that we're going to go in and the focus is counseling and adding value. And I think if that becomes your focus as an institution, that you want to engage and add value and take information that goes beyond just your institution, then you are automatically going to draw, you are actually going to have schools compete for your attention. They will want to have you. You can go from a place of, please let me in, to please come to me, literally. And we've seen that happen real time, and I want to share that. I particularly want to share it through a case study. We do a visit. So you might be from any country and you go to a high school. And this case study is about a student who wanted to study music, and we did a workshop, and he said, but this is all very good, but I'm never going to be able to convince my parents. Now, you had a great music program, and the student is right in front of you. What ended up happening was that we put together a 4-slide presentation on the multi-billion-dollar music industry, the 40 different careers that are possible with music, 12 different alumni that were researched over a couple of weeks that studied music and how their career panned out, and the future of music. So everything with the Industrial Revolution bringing other leisure activities into action, and then what happens with music going forward. That presentation helped the counselor change the mindset of the parent. This kid went to study music. Now, when I'm a university traveling, if I can do work like that, I know you don't always have the time, but this student is going to bring you 100 students if you could do this kind of work. This student this whole helicopter recruitment and show me the students, Jerry Maguire said, show me the money. And we often say, as university, we just profound this activity, this effort of putting a 4-slide deck for a student who's struggling to convince his parents has such a huge impact. And I would encourage you to look at this approach to recruitment where you actually add value. Also, don't disregard places that have, how many students did you send to Australia? Only one went to Australia from your school. I don't want to come to your school then. I mean, for God's sake, don't do that, because there's lots of institutions who pick schools based on, everybody seems to be going there, let me go there. Well, there are many examples. I can tell you one school that sent just one student to the US in 2012 ended up sending 27 a few years later. What a dramatic shift. And the potential is there in a lot of schools in India. They need help, and they need counseling-focused help, not sales. They don't need to be sold anything more. They've been sold enough. They need somebody who can genuinely come and give them good quality information. And that's an approach I recommend, which is what we're talking about, engagement-oriented approach rather than a recruitment-focused approach. Recruitment as a byproduct of engagement rather than recruitment as the sole purpose of travel. And helping in their moment of need, we need students, so we are there. But when they need some help, where are we? How about making sure when a student asks for some help, that help gets to them? And that's the form of recruitment that we've encouraged that I have advocated and we've encouraged in my organization. And again, we're running out of time because I want to give at least some time for questions. But we did some research, and these are in the order of importance, the parameters for students. And if you want this slide, we can send it to you. Each of the three decision makers, these are the things that are most important. And this is validated research. We've conducted research and we put this down. I'm going to rush through now to complete this. So examples of different models being used today: in-country offices opened by universities. There's a hybrid model where you have an in-country coordinator who's housed at another vendor that you use. You've got group travel. People travel extensively as groups, small groups, large groups, and then you've got individual travel. So all of these ways of engaging that you could be looking at. Again, I don't have too much time to talk about this now. Thoughts are very powerful, and everything was once just a thought. Including myself, I was once just a thought until my parents thought they want to have a child and they want to have a boy, and or whatever else they thought, and the thought became a reality when they expressed the thought, and then they took action, and then the reality is right in front of you. That's Ganesh standing and presenting. But everything starts. This chair was once just a thought. This table was once just a thought. Flying was once just a thought. What are the thoughts that you are in this profession with? Are you in this profession with thoughts of, creating a future that is more transactional, more student, we fight with each other, countries, etc., trying to get more? Or are you in this profession with a thought of adding value, with the thought of developing relationships? So many times people tell me, oh, they cannot afford it. I tell you, I have seen numerous examples and counseled thousands of students. I have personally counseled. I have seen people get 8 universities that they have applied to, 4 admissions, out of which 2 gave them scholarships, 2 did not. They went and they had no money when they were thinking about applying to universities. They ended up going to the most expensive of those universities that didn't give them any scholarship. Because by the time they made the decision to go to university, they perceived that the value of the university was much more than the cost of studying at the university. You have to emphasize in conversations, cost is the focus for students until they determine the value of the education. It is not a surprise that, UnivAssist became a power center in some form. Not because, we knew how to do business. We had no idea how to do business or run a conference or anything, but purely because we understood students. And for us, all of us as university admission reps, it's important to understand the student. He will only debate cost. He will haggle with you for scholarship till the point that he knows, this education I want to get. I become part of an alumni network of 150,000 people across 150 countries, and this network could help me create this in my life and do this until he does. And that requires engagement, that requires time, that requires speaking. Finally, some left brain stuff. I'm taught math all my life, so math teacher, left brain stuff. I want to leave you with all this. So that you can go back to your administration, and we can take questions now with this slide. So sorry, we have a little less time for questions, but one of my volunteers I'll come to you. I'm just explaining this slide as you take the mic to for the first question. But no short-term, this whole thing of let me go and see once what happens. It's a terrible way of recruiting students. And every time I've met provosts, presidents at US institutions, and so many times what we found is that the conversations are all about next 6 months, 1 year, etc. It's so important to have a broader, longer term conversation and come back from the future 5 years from now. This is what I'd like to accomplish in terms of diversity. These are the, you want to set a number goal, set a number goal, but set a number goal for 5 years and then plan year-wise what you would do. Go beyond recruitment, a comprehensive engagement plan, not just, how can I, maybe host counselors on your campus, whichever country you are in, wherever you are, have events for alumni, have a comprehensive recruitment plan that you have, differentiate, young people increasingly want quality information. Give me 1 minute of a professor's time. That's value for me. Tell me what it means to be a food stylist. What it means to love photography and food, and get something that excites young people. Their attention spans are 40 seconds. Don't try to give them brochures that traditional, it's gone, finished. They need that short video that your professor talks about something very exciting in a subject area. Or you do something for students which is very, very exciting. So you want to figure out how to differentiate yourself from other people. And most people, because they can't figure it out, they feel that they cannot differentiate. And I think that's important to do. And really encourage, look at the companies. This is a report, they spend 10.2% of their annual revenue on overall marketing. Are we spending maybe 1% of our expected student revenue on your recruitment efforts? I don't know what the percentage is, I'm not saying 10.2%. But really, this is an area that needs some investment as well to engage. This is a way of educating before you actually educate, before they actually come on campus. And this requires investment. So you've got to take back some statistics. And administrators at universities will always understand numbers. And so somewhere, if you are an admissions person who's looking at budget approvals or looking at those pieces, you want to take back enough data and information so that you can get the resources that you need, the financial resources to come to conferences like IC3, to engage with the local community and to do all of that. So your question. Sorry, I'll let the panel join me in taking questions. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Stephen Boyd from the University of Bridgeport in Connecticut in the U.S. Yesterday, a kind of a common theme that we heard from the counselors in the presentation and also in this interaction with the counselors in conversation was the power of the parent in the decision-making process for undergraduate applicants. And I just wanted to ask, there may be no one answer, or no easy answer, but what kind of guidance or examples can you give of ways that we can employ to reach the parents of the student, directly, indirectly? I like the idea of the 4 slides. Anything along those lines would, I think, be very helpful for us.
My panelist.
That's a great question, Stephen. In Nepal, unfortunately, parents are not that involved. I really recognized that when I went to train the new advisor in Sri Lanka. And I realized that instead of the student coming for the individual advising, it was the parent. And we asked, where's the student? The student's at home studying. So it was a real culture shock for me to realize that in some other countries, parents are very, very actively involved. In Nepal, not so much. Perhaps maybe just simple fact sheets could work, because I feel like in Nepal, parents are not that adept with technology. So perhaps sharing with the student, fact sheet for parents could be one possible option.
Bangladeshi parents are involved. So I think just inviting them, if you're physically there, inviting the parents as well. So if there's a promotion going on, then the promotion should say that the parents are welcome to join if they want to. So if they physically can talk to you, that makes a huge difference. And the parents will ask you a lot of questions that they're thinking of.
Does that help? You've got different perspectives. I think there are different ways that you could have parents involved. I think From a counselor perspective, because that's what I've been doing most of my life, they're very left brain, very analytical, they're very career focused, they're very job focused. So all of that data helps engage them, and they're also very glamour focused. You know, they want glamour, they want the big names, etc. If you can share information that kind of shows them the value of your education and you know how it stands out, and help them go beyond glamour. So since you are from the US, 4,500 institutions in the US, and say that don't choose my institution just like you choose an institution in the UK, because you will only have 169, or I don't know what the exact number is, institutions. The US is a much larger country and a much larger system. So somewhere those sorts of insights that, okay, you know, it's not as easy to compare the US and UK or Australia and Canada, and you know, these are different countries, different systems. So any insights that you can share with parents, that's helpful. That's the best way to engage with them. Reaching directly to them, it has to go through the students. I'm not sure how you would reach directly to them other than plastering newspapers with really expensive advertisements, which you would not want to invest your money in. But yeah. One more question, maybe. We have 3 more minutes. Yes.
Thank you. Song Hoffman from University of Delaware. I used to actually work for South Dakota State, where we have the most number of actually our university students coming from Nepal, our first university, first student population. I think I don't have a question, I have a statement. I just got all my questions answered. With your session, very, very great session. And when I came in, I was thinking, okay, jumping from a 19,000 I-20 university to a $50,000 I-20 university, am I gonna have any luck in my beloved country of Nepal and Bangladesh? Should I still go back there? And I got that answered, and I still, actually, I'll definitely go back and bother you. Those 2 ladies have been very, very, very helpful in the past. We are rock stars, we were rock stars, and I was thinking that maybe University of Delaware will bother you more. One tag-along question. What's your opinion on all the expats from all those countries, India, Bangladesh, and Nepal, in Dubai, in UAE and in Kuwait, Qatar? Expat. And all these diaspora, your people that go out there, and the parents support their children, they work in those countries and support their children study.
Okay, so I got the stop sign there. So I'm going to let you answer, our guest. Okay, so they haven't understood the question as well. Can you repeat it for me? In other, of course, they are extremely affluent families. Many of them, it's a great group to look at, and their motivation to be away from the country might be a little bit higher as well, because they're already out of the country and they might just move on to whatever part of the world your university is in. So, yeah, super. Great. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Please do fill in the feedback forms and hand it over on your way out. Thank you on behalf of all of us. Thank you.